So during the day, actually, we try to keep the houses in the mid-70s as much as possible. At nighttime, we can drop down to about 60 degrees or so. You don't really want to get into the 50s too much because tomatoes can start dropping flowers at that point. As far as humidity, we like to try to stay below 80%. Once you get above 80%, you can start seeing diseases and funguses starting to form. Powdery mildew we usually have an issue with every year. But if you can keep the houses below 80%, that helps a lot. And the way we do that is we just kind of vent the air out. We have a humidistat that we set for about 80%. And then when the house reaches 80%, it'll start sucking the air out of the house and bringing cold air in from outside. And when you reheat that cold air, you can drop the humidity quite a bit in it. And it works pretty well. Just a little, you burn a little more fuel and stuff, but it's kind of a toss-up because otherwise you're going to be spraying fungicides or something to try to get rid of it. So it works pretty well until it gets warmer outside and the temperature inside your greenhouse is the same temperature as outside, and then you can't really heat the air to dry it as well. So the beneficial bugs, we use ladybugs, we use parasitic wasps, plants that'll attract those beneficial insects like sweet alyssum. We've been planting chives, I guess. Basil and stuff will also attract your beneficial insects. And they work pretty well, especially in the winter because the sides are closed on all our houses, so they're pretty much trapped in there. We put the sweet alyssum in to try to give them an environment they like and some other plants that they'll like to eat and be around. But they work really well. The ladybugs we started using a few years ago. My brother started using them, and I think they work the best. They're just the hardest to keep inside the houses because they just always want to leave. But that's why you plant the plants that they also like to try to give them an environment, that they want to stay in.
In December, Tommy will start power washing all the greenhouses, just cleaning out all the residual, just dirt and dust and junk from the season before. And then the insulation boards that we put the bags on just help keep everything up off the cold ground because we get these greenhouses started in like January, February. So those get pretty grimy, so Tommy will power wash all those off each year. And then that'll be followed by Jason coming through and power washing the inside of each one of the tanks that we use for irrigation. And a lot of times he'll power wash it all out, vacuum it out good, get all the debris out, fill it up with water, and then he'll run some bleach through just to kind of clean out whatever may be in the water lines. And then him and Zach this year blew them all out, just open valves on the ends, and just rinse all of the bleach out. And then we run just fresh water through, rinse those out, then check all the emitters to make sure they're dropping the water. And then we're able to start blowing up the bags. The bags are filled with just coconut core. It's all the ground up husks of coconut from the harvest. And it's just the medium we grow in. Those just expand as they get wet. They fill up with water and then they just expand and rise, and then we just have to break them up a little bit and we can plant right into them. In the basement, Lisa or Tom will start the seeds in either 50 count, 30 count, or 72 count trays, and we'll leave them in the basement under the grow lights until they reach maybe 2 to 3 inches, and then we'll bring them down to our grow house and raise them up another couple of inches, and then transplant those straight into the bags of coconut core, and that's where they'll stay. So far we've planted about 1,080 peppers, and those are red, yellow, and orange peppers. We've planted, I think, about 6,000 tomato plants. We do Big Dina, they're called, Rebelski, and Estiva. And then we also plant another couple hundred of heirloom varieties, which are Margold, Marbone, and Gin Fizz. Those are seeded in the same time period as all those. They're just a separate variety. From the time of seeding, it's probably 4 weeks of sitting in the little cell trays, and then we transplant them right into the greenhouses. We started those seeds in January. I think it was right around the 10th. So I believe right around just before Valentine's Day, we actually transplanted out into number 4, the tomatoes. And follow me, take a quick look at them, see where they're at. So these were planted as suckers, maybe about that big, and now you can see they're a good little over 3 feet tall. And if you start to really look, you could find flowers. Some of them have actual tomatoes started on them. So I would say by hopefully the end of April, first part of May, we'll be able to pick the first bit. It'll start real slow. We'll pick this whole house and get like a box, like a 20-pound box. Then the next week we'll get probably 3 boxes, and then it'll just explode. They'll be at its peak in June, the end of May, June. We'll probably take 50 plus crates full of tomatoes just out of this house. The startup of these greenhouses entails setting out all the insulation boards, these, that the bags are sitting on. So we put all those down, and we use a string attached here and down there to keep them straight. And these rows are 5 foot apart. So we'll put all those down and get the lines all stretched out. And then we'll put the coconut cores in and put each one of the coconut bags has a little drip emitter that we'll put in the center of the bag. And then we'll turn it on. The process of actually blowing them up probably takes 3 hours. Once we have them all blown up, mixing them up a little bit, topping them off if need be, and actually transplanting all the plants out. 3 people can do that in about 1 day. We could have a house done if all 3 of us are able to work on it continuously that day. But there's a lot of other things that happen throughout the day that need to be done too, so it doesn't always happen. So within 2 days, we could have all of the boards out, all of the bags laid out, blown up to a plantable state, and then planted all within about 2 days. For each house, we have 12 greenhouses. We have one greenhouse where our peppers are that's 150 feet long by 50 feet wide. So obviously that one takes probably about 3 to 4 days to get fully done, just because it holds probably 1,000 bags of coconut core between the sides and the middle and everything. So there's 12 greenhouses that we have to set up that way. We're just about halfway done now. We started growing tomatoes in the greenhouse because obviously if you plant tomato plants outside, you can't plant the actual plant until mid-May. So that would be a 4-week-old plant that big, transplanted out in the field in May. So you're not really going to get a harvest until July. So doing it this way, we could start harvesting actual tomatoes before we would be able to even transplant them outside and be able to have a good local tomato that's grown in the state distributed through the state. Our tomatoes go out of our stand, they go all the way to Lyman orchards, to Bishop orchards out in Guilford. They go all over the state, all over the state. So instead of buying tomatoes from California, or at that point probably Florida, there's a lot less fuel involved because they're already grown right here in the state. But it is a lot of work, as you can see. But I think it's worth it.